Okay, welcome back. Now we have Vladimir Sosnilo from the Chebyshev laboratory, who is going to talk us about pro-excision for stacks.
Yeah, thank you very much for organizing this stuff. Normally it would take me like a flight and a ton of bureaucracy, so it's kind of cool. I can have this. I can talk here. Yeah, I don't know. Should I already start? Everyone is here. I don't know. Yeah, maybe let me start.
The rooms are closed and the time is up, so I think you can start.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm gonna talk about is, yeah, I'll have a lot of statements that have the following form. I'll just have a square, some commutative square, and then some properties. And then I'll state that K-theory maps this square to something, either to pullback or to some weak version of pullback, or maybe it's not K-theory, but some other thing, but everything will have this form. And I'll formulate what our goal is. Yeah, so we have some CDH square of stacks, and stacks should be nice here. Yeah, CDH square is just a commutative square where this map is proper, this map is a closed immersion. This is a pullback square, and there is an isomorphism on the complements of the closed subscheme here and here. Yeah, and the general statement that we want to prove is that K-theory maps this into pullback square. Well, this actually isn't going to happen because even for schemes, there are counterexamples, and what you should actually do instead is to consider Zn to be nth infinitesimal thickening of Z. Then you want to consider this kind of square. This is now a whole system of squares, if you want, an in system of squares. And then you want to apply K-theory to this whole system and end up with a commutative square of pro spectra, which you want to be commutative. Yeah. Sorry. Maybe how do I do it right? I hope it's readable. My handwriting is not that good, and I was too lazy to prepare slides. But I hope you can read what I write.
Yeah, we can read, don't worry.
Yeah, pullback square. Yeah, so here you want some assumption on your stacks because in general we won't be able to prove it, but let me just write something very vague, which doesn't actually tell you anything. I'm just gonna say that X is nice, and maybe that this is representable as well. By nice, so I'm not exactly sure what the correct statement in the end will be, but it for sure should have linearly reductive stabilizers, and it should be like, you know, quasi-separated, quasi-whatever, quasi-compact, this kind of stuff, have nice diagonal, whatever. Maybe there are some additional assumptions necessary for the statement on the stabilizers, but I'm not going to talk about this. And it will be not dependent on the work what I'm doing right now. So just keep in mind that this is just nice. Okay, yeah, so this is a goal. And how can I well, let me also remind you some statements that are related to this one that have been previously proved by other people. So maybe first result to mention here is Kerz, Strunk, Tamme, which proves this for the schematic situation. And before this, there were different results proving actual descent, like this kind of statement for regular K theory, not for the pro-K theory. But instead of K theory, one considers something else like homotopy K theory. Or you can consider K theory with inverted characteristic of the base, whatever your base is. This is probably Szysinski.
So, Robert, Elden has a question.
Yeah.
He's saying that you need Noetherian in some situation.
Yeah, sure. Nice includes Noetherian. Nice Noetherian. Okay. Yeah, this is probably not the best design solution to write names on different sites and different rows, but whatever. Yeah, so this just proves usual descent. So you have the square of for KH, not for pro KH, not pro, no pro. But it uses some properties that only good theories have. For example, it uses what you call nil invariance. If you have a derived scheme or whatever, you can take its pi zero, and your theory should coincide on the two. So this is very restrictive, but it's also good that you have it. And yet another result in this direction is a result by Hoya Krishna. This doesn't have anything to do with KH. And it proves the result for stacks and for KH. So it also has assumptions that X is nice. It considers the homotopy K theory, no pro. But yeah, again, no regular K theory. So yeah, what I'd like to here to mention is that this result relies substantially on the result of Alper Holreed. If you want me to write full names, let me know. I'm just too lazy. The result about Adeel local structure of algebraic stacks. I think that's the name. Yeah, so there they prove that any stack locally has a form Adeel locally. Any nice stack locally has a form like this, where G is linearly reductive and R is just a commutative. I mean, an Noetherian commutative ring. And okay, so what are the results in this direction we need? And what other results are related? There is a paper by, oh, I forgot to mention, sorry, I keep forgetting this kind of stuff. So this is joined with Tom Bachmann, Adeel Khan, and Charanya Ravi. And this is work in progress. This is not yet published, and even not even on arXiv. Yeah. So another related result by Adeel Khan. I forgot the name of the paper, but probably it's something like K-theory of blowups and CGH descent. You'll find it. Derived blowups, maybe. Yeah, so the way the proof of KST goes, it basically uses, well, it can be separated into 3 steps. Step 1 is some geometric input called flatification by blowups. Sorry, oops. And second part is reduction to what's called, okay, second part is the case of the proper map being finite. And then the next step is you reduce everything to the case of what's called derived blowup. So you have a scheme or stack X, you have a closed subscheme Z, and you define what's called maybe I don't know what sign I should put. Maybe let me write this, although this probably doesn't make any sense. Oh, sorry, not here. But this is like a derived version of blowup, and it satisfies.
What's the symbol on top of the blowup?
Well, I was trying to write L, you know, like
Thank you.
Like left derived, but yeah, I don't know what the right notation for this. Yeah, so this is basically a version of blowup. It satisfies similar universal property, but in the world of derived schemes, not just in the world of classical schemes. And it turns out that it turns out to be very useful for the proof of this kind of K-theory result, although it doesn't use it in the statement. There are no derived schemes. The proof actually uses this kind of stuff, and you want to prove the descent statement for this. So you want descent for this. Yeah, so there is a paper by Adeel that actually proves descent for this. So it proves 3 in the context of stacks. Yeah, and the flatification by blowups is also available for stacks, and this is some result by Reed. I don't remember the name of the paper. Yeah, so the only step that we need for proving this kind of result for stacks is actually the second step. So yeah, let me maybe I'm a bit unorganized, but the whole idea of the proof is you prove these 3 steps. So the first and the third step are already done, and to prove the second step, you want to use the local structure and reduce everything to the case of, well, I would call this a fine case, although it's not really a fine case. It's yeah, it's this kind of case. So what I want to claim is that in the end, we want to prove this kind of statement. We have a map of, well, yeah, we have maps of rings. And this is actually a G-covariant square of rings. By this, I mean that every ring admits an action of a group G. Yeah, everything is over a base. So I don't know, over base K. Let K be a field here, although I expect that it can be any Noetherian guy in the end. But it's not written down yet, so I don't want to claim wrong things.
Oh, sorry. Is it what you're stating now, the main statement, or no?
Yes, the main statement was already here. Yeah, maybe.
Can you write like theorems of it?
Yeah. X is nice, of course. Well, X is the same as above. Yeah. Yeah, this is the main statement. And now I'm describing the plan of how we're going to prove this main statement. Yes, so now I'm trying to formulate a related statement that that will imply the second step. And in the end, together with the step 1 and step 3, this will give us the whole statement.
Sorry, Vava, can I ask a bit more? So I understand you just said until now that this Pro-excision descent was known for KH and was known, sorry, series descent for KH, Pro-excision descent for K theory of schemes, and it was known for nice stacks like the quotients spec R mod G, right?
Okay, so there are 3 statements. One statement is Pro-excision descent for schemes.
Yes.
This is KST.
Yeah.
There was regular descent, no pro, for KH.
Yes.
And there was regular descent for KH on stacks.
Okay.
A recent paper by Hoyo Krishna.
Wait a second. Okay. And then the 4 and so on dots in your
yeah, list. I use a notation with many dots. This is like theorem, and this is like lemma, because this is what we're going to use, and this is.
Oh, I see. So it was not known for a spec R mod G, right? I see.
It was not known for spec R mod G for K theory, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so let me try. Maybe let me put some signs that are conventional in mathematics. So we have R prime SS prime be some rings over a field. Probably Noetherian ring is fine. K Noetherian is fine. Yeah, they are also Noetherian, I guess. Well, no, not really. I don't need any Noetherian. Well, yeah, I do. Noetherian. And all of them admit a G action by some G linearly reductive over a field over K. And we have pullback square. These maps are surjective. And R prime isn't it cool? Oh, well, yeah, it's a nice one. Then you have the following result. You have excision for this kind of squares. Just on the nose. And this is actually very, so it might look a bit different from the original CDH square, but if you look at the, I mean, at the affine schemes associated, I mean, the stacks associated to this picture, then the conditions merely translate to the conditions to this kind of condition, and of course, closed corresponds to closed immersion, to surjectivity. Properness, well, you don't need any properness, and just even a more general statement.
So I would ask Tom, but I'll ask you too. So what is properness when you speak about stacks?
Well, I mean, you can define it locally.
Okay.
So you take any cover by scheme and look at the pullback, and it should be a proper map of schemes. I think this would work. You also need it to be representable, and I don't want to talk about this kind of stuff, but representable essentially means that any pullback of a fine cover is an affine cover. Not exactly, but yeah.
So sorry, you mean that when you say proper, you mean proper representable then?
Proper representable, yeah. I think I even wrote it somewhere. Yeah, proper representable, proper representable. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, what I wanted to say is that this condition corresponds precisely to the condition of this isomorphism, but in a bit weirder way. So this is a stronger condition. And what this means, what this would mean is some, I mean, when you think about what this means, it tells you about some, maybe some intersection of ideals or whatever being what you want. And this intersection of ideals, you might take any power of the ideal. So if you want the condition that exactly corresponds to this one, you need to make something weaker. You need to consider infinitesimal thickenings. Well, and same for R prime n. Sorry, I'm a bit confused. Yeah, I think it's true. And then you want to claim that this map is a pro-equivalence. So this is derived thing. And another thing you want to ask for is the same for pullback. You don't want to consider strict pullbacks. You want to say that the map from R to prime n yeah, I think so. That this is a pro-equivalent. So these are pro systems.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm a bit confused why the homotopy groups appear.
Well, here you don't need any homotopy groups. That's true.
You need it on the left-hand side, I guess, when you have the derived tensor product.
Yeah, when you have the derived. So here you need it because I consider something derived. In general, you don't need this.
Well, R, S, R prime, S prime are rings or simplicial rings in this setting.
So as stated, let it. So if I just write homotopy groups, nothing changed. You just think that they are zero, except the degree 0. But later, I want them to be simplicial rings or E1 rings. So let me write it like this right now, for the moment. But later it will make more sense. It will make more sense. Sure, it does make some sense.
These two pro-equivalences you wrote are hypotheses of your result?
It's a hypothesis.
Okay.
So maybe I'll comment this, and here will be the continuation of the actual statement. So the statement KG. I should have used different sites. KGR. You want this to be a pullback square. I have a feeling that I messed something up because I usually write it in the other direction. I usually write it in different orientation, but I hope I didn't mess anything up. Yeah. Anyway, so we're actually going to prove this kind of statement in a more general situation where I allow this to be Noetherian E1 rings. And then here you consider the derived quotient, not the schematic, not the the only quotient that makes sense for E1 rings.
So the statement is that the square is a pullback square, right?
Yes. The statement is this is a pullback square.
Can you write? Thank you. Good.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, just to be clear, you mean a pullback square of pro spectra, right? Because we have this lim.
Yes. And I'll need to talk more about what pullback square for pro spectra means later. But right now I want to state it just to state it. Okay. Do you have any questions? Because I feel like I'm a bit messy with my writing and with organizations of the statements. Do you get what the statement and what the conditions are? Yeah, so in the end, the statement is as follows. We have R prime, S prime, some E1 rings, where S prime is actually quotient of S. If you want, it also has this kind of form by quotient by some set of elements, whatever. And then we have the two conditions that this map of pro systems is an equivalence of pro systems, and this map of pro systems is an equivalence. Then we have that this kind of square is a pullback square in K-theory. So
sorry, if we can watch this picture a bit longer, I'm a bit confused about the second condition. So this being a pullback square, you're saying does not immediately imply that the second is a pro equivalence, right? But for schemes, it would.
Can you ask me again? I didn't get the question.
The second condition looks quite similar to the fact that this is a pullback square. The original, like R prime S prime is a pullback square.
Oh, right. This is the condition. Yeah.
Okay. So it's just, this is the right way to formulate the pullback condition in the world of stacks. That's what you're saying?
I mean, in the world of pro systems, whatever.
I see.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So the actual situation we need in the end, I think, is that we have some elements in R, in pi0 of R. Then we consider this kind of thing. I hope it's readable. Well, yeah, I hope I can make it readable. So this is the derived quotient. And then you have your S, and you have S mod the images of the elements. And this is actually push out on the nose, but the condition on the pullback is the interesting condition. Of course, if you work with classical schemes, you don't have the derived quotient here, and this condition will also be not on the nose. This will be some condition on vanishing of some Tor groups. But essentially for the context of E1 rings, this condition is interesting. Anyway, let's move forward. So yeah, this is what we want to prove. And if we remove G from the context, this has already been proved in the paper of Tamme on the K-theory of pullbacks. And there is a very general proof. So you don't even you don't need any commutativity as well as in this statement. You just have E1. You just have this condition. You just have essentially you have this and this condition, and you can also formulate it for any Pro system of rings. Maybe let me try to make another statement. As I said, I will have a lot of statements with a square and with the corollary that K-theory is sensitive to a pullback. And maybe let me write the square again so that, I don't know, so that it might become easier to comprehend. So in general, what they prove is you have arbitrary square of Pro systems of rings. And you have the same condition, pi of Rn prime cross Sn over S prime. The other way. ISO, pro-equivalence. And the same condition for the other side of the picture, that pi is prime n. Then you have Proexcision for K-theory, K-theory sensitive Pro K-theory is a pullback square of prospector. And the first step for proving this kind of result that they do in their paper is the following. You have this commutative square of rings, and you have these conditions on the nose without any Pro assumptions. Then usual K-theory sends it to a pullback. Moreover, they show that if you have this condition up to first 10 homotopy groups, so if this is pi I r to pi I r prime cross s over s prime, equivalence for all I less than some n, and the same for s prime. Then K-theory sends it to an n pullback square, which means that it's the map from the corner that should be the pullback to the pullback is n-connective.
Vova, so the condition that you considered above is like Milnor Proexcision in some sense?
Yes, yes, this is Milnor Proexcision.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is Milnor Proexcision and this is Milnor excision. And what I was trying to talk about here is that finite CDH excision is the same thing. It follows from Milnor excision, and finite pro-CDH excision follows from pro-Milnor excision. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, but how are we going to do this same thing for stacks? So this theorem obviously follows from the second part of this theorem. This is the second part. This is the first part. Well, maybe I'll put one here. Because if you think about this condition, these conditions, it would tell you that if you do appropriate truncations, that you can replace your square by pros. Well, the point is that this condition is somehow weak. It's not the same as saying that this is a pullback square in prospectra, but it would mean that it's an n pullback square for all n in prospectra. That is, if you consider actual pullback, the map from this part to the pullback will be an n equivalence for all n. But this is not the same as a pro-equivalence in spectra because, well, T structure in prospectra is not Postnikov complete. Yeah, is not complete. But this kind of statement allows you to say that K-theory will actually be that this square is, so you know that this square is equivalent to the one that's level-wise satisfying this property. And by this statement, you know that the K-theory will be equivalent to the one that's level-wise n pullback. So that the pro-K-theory in the end will be a pullback square in this sense. But what does it mean to be pullback square here? It doesn't actually mean that it's a pullback square in prospectra. It means that it's a pullback square up to pro-completion. So it's saying that pi I kg of r to pi I of the pullback is an equivalence for all I, but not the prospectra themselves. And that's what all of these results are about. That's what KST is about. That's what Tamme is about. It's all about saying that this square is not actually a pullback square in prospectra. It's a weak pullback square. That it's an equivalence after all truncations, or it's an equivalence on all homotopy groups. And yeah, I somehow think that this is the most important part of the whole thing, because the Proexcision result, if you claimed that this map from Rn to the pullback is a pro-equivalence, and you claim that the map from the tensor product to here is a pro-equivalence in whatever sense, you need to make some sense of this. But yeah, you can just say that it's pro-equivalence of spectra. Then it's on the nose true that K theory is a that the K theory sends it to a pullback in prospectra, but that's not the situation that people are dealing with. That's not the situation that happens, because the usual Milnor squares is a very rare thing to have. As far as I understand, you don't ever have this kind of thing for classical Noetherian schemes, as far as I understand. It's something very weird.
What do you mean?
Because
Wait,
this kind.
I thought there was the example which always worked, that if you take a evaluation ring, you can localize it as a prime and quotient by prime, and be happy with this too.
Localize. You take evaluation ring.
Yeah. Okay.
Which
So
prime?
I don't know, rank 1, I guess, or any. Well, take a prime ideal in evaluation ring. I don't remember.
So the thing that, since this is a closed immersion, and you have some condition on the tensor product, you're basically claiming that there are no higher torque groups between this guy and this guy. And this is not something that you often have. This is some understanding that I have. Maybe you mean something else. Well, okay, at least if these are closed immersions, then I think, these are closed immersions, then I think you do not have this kind of square for Noetherian rings. In general, probably
because okay, I see. Because evaluation rings of rank 1, unless they're DVR, are not Noetherian. That's what you're referring to. Okay, good. Sorry.
If they're DVR, they're Noetherian. Yeah.
Otherwise, they're not. That's my point.
Yeah. So this is this condition. If you had this condition on the nose, or if you had, instead of this condition, the condition of having pro-equivalence of just without the pi i's, but the whole spectra, this would be a very rare thing to have. And this is not what happens. This is not what one has for a CDH square, for example. So we actually need these weak conditions and this weak notion of pullback. If you have any questions, please ask me now until I start running too fast. Okay, probably no one has questions. Okay, so what I'm going to claim now is that these theorems of Tamme are actually a very general phenomenon that doesn't have anything to do with rings, with even with E1. It's something very categorical. So theorem, assume you have a square of stable infinity categories. And first, I assume that it's pullbacks on it's a pullback on mapping space. So I'm not saying that all objects are the same as in the pullback, but I claim that this map fully faithful. I also claim that all the maps in the picture all maps, all functors are epimorphic. That is, the image generates the category. The codomain category.
And this is weaker than asking the Verdier quotients, right?
This is much weaker. Yeah. I mean, for example, if you consider the functor from compact objects in SH to compact objects in DAB, the derived category of the abelian groups, it will satisfy this property, but it's not even essentially surjective.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
And any functor induced by a functor by a map of rings on the categories of modules, it's the same. It's just saying that the image that, yeah, I don't know how to formulate it simply. And the third property that we want is a bit weird one. Is weird, but I'll explain it. So I can consider the completions of these categories. And then I have adjoint functors. Right, adjoint. And the condition I want to ask for, so in this context, I have a base change map, the base change isomorphism. I didn't write any names, unfortunately. Let me fix this problem. And then I have F star P lower star to
Yeah, sorry, there is a question.
yeah.
What does it mean, generate the domain, the codomain? If it means to generate after shifts and retracts?
Generates under finite limits and colimit. Generate as a stable infinity category. Yeah.
Okay, so under these suspensions and finite colimits.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So in this context, you have.
You don't ask for retracts.
I don't ask for retracts here, but at some point I will want everything to be idempotent complete. Not here, but you may already start thinking that they are all idempotent complete.
Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, if I consider the incompletions, I have the base change isomorphism or base change map, sorry. And the condition I want to ask for is that this base change map is an isomorphism. Then the claim is that Ka, Kb, Kb prime, Ka prime is a pullback square. So I want to explain this condition. It might look unrelated, but unrelated to what we had before. But this is actually exactly the reformulation of the condition on this right lower part of the square. So if you look at this condition, this is exactly saying that the base change isomorphism for this map and for this map, or for this square, is an isomorphism on the generator of this category. But then, since all functors commute with colimits and with finite limits, it's also isomorphism on all objects of the category. So this condition corresponds to the condition of the base change being an isomorphism. And that motivates a definition which I'm not gonna, well, yeah, I'm gonna write the definition. Square is in theorem is called the Milnor square of infinity category, of stable infinity category. Yeah, so this is our result. This is actually a very stupid, almost reformulation of what Len and Tamme did. The idea of the proof is almost identical, except that you need to reformulate it in the right language, and you need to come up with this condition. But essentially, it's the same. It's the same thing. Of course, it implies the Land and Tamme's result. And what you, yeah, and then, okay, so this already implies some sort of excision result for stacks, because now if you have a commutative square of stacks, you can take perfect complexes of the square, and you get the diagram of stable infinity categories. If you assume that everything is representable, I think you'll also have the condition that all functors are epimorphic. And this condition and this condition correspond to some condition on stacks, essentially the same condition as we wanted in the beginning.
There is another question.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, how does this result implies the statement for stacks?
Okay, it doesn't imply the original, I'm trying to explain. So it doesn't imply the whole statement, that the pro-excision statement that we wanted. But what I want to say that it implies some excision statement for stacks, because if we have some diagram, I'm not even going to write the names. I can apply perf to this diagram, and I'll get a square of stable infinity categories. The condition on the pullback corresponds to actually the condition of the pullback here, and the condition on the condition here also corresponds to the condition on the
okay.
Another
question that arrived at the same time that I missed. The question is whether this should be thought of as the many object version of the result by Land and Tamme.
Yeah, you can think that this is the many object version of Land Tamme, but I think it's actually, in a sense, it's simpler than Land Tamme, because well, in the proof they use the object called I don't know what it's called, but it's written as follows. It's like circle.product, and they use for any square they construct a square with this guy, and for this square they first prove the excision statement for this guy, and then they use the second condition to compare this guy with S prime. But the condition of the ring is a bit weird. If you look at this, it looks like something. It looks somewhat strange. But on the categorical level, what they're doing is they're actually doing some Verdier quotient of some semi-orthogonal decomposition. It's something very, very natural in the context of stable infinity categories. And in a sense, going to one object version, formulating it for one object is harder than formulating it for as many objects as you want. But yeah, this is a many object version of Land Tamme. Yeah, anyway, so how do you go to stacks? If you have a diagram of stacks, you just apply perf, and then you have some condition on stacks that correspond to the condition of stable infinity categories. If you want, I can formulate them, but they are what you expect it to be. Like pullback and push forward condition on the stacks on the stacks level corresponds to the first and third conditions, and the second condition, well, it's somewhat weird, but I think it follows that from the fact it follows if all maps are representable, I think. Yeah. So, yeah, perf, and then K, and you get what you had for the original square. Because that's how you define K theory. You define it as a K theory of perfect complexes. But this is, sorry. But this is not very useful, and it doesn't help you prove the original Pro-excision descent result. And to fix it, of course, you need some kind of weaker version of pullbacks and pushouts, and you need to prove the excision for them. But the problem here is you can't say what it means for stable infinity, for a map, for a square of stable infinity categories to be a n pullback square. You couldn't say that it's, you don't know what n connective map of stable infinity category is. You know it for E1 rings, for connective E1 rings, but you don't know even for E1 rings, but you don't know what it means for stable infinity category. It doesn't make any sense. And to fix it, what we're doing is we're considering an extra structure on stable infinity categories that allows you to talk about this. And then we formulate the theorem for the stable infinity categories with this extra structure. And when going from stacks to stable infinity categories, we get this extra structure on the perf that allows you to talk about this. This is the plan. Okay, you have questions? You don't. Okay.
There is a question. Which paper is this BKR paper?
BKR. This is our. This is not published yet. This is not on arXiv yet. This is Bachmann, Khan, Ravi, Sosnilo. This is what the talk is about.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So definition. This is actually not going to be what's commonly found in the papers, but it's equivalent. It's an equivalent one. A weighted, boundedly weighted, I'm confused. Idempotent complete stable infinity category. Is a choice of a subcategory A in C, which is closed under direct sum and idempotent complete, such that closed under sums and retracts and for all x and y, the mapping spectrum is connective. And the third condition is A generates C as a stable infinity category. Well, it generates C under colimits. Desuspension. Yeah.
When you in condition 2,
Mm-hmm.
you write for every x and y. Do you mean for every x and y in A?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, but okay.
So this is the same as yeah. If you know, if you saw the other definition of weight structure on a stable infinity category or bounded weight structure, this is usually formulated as a T in a way a T structure is so as a T structure is some two families of positive and negative classes with some axioms. And this is usually how weight structure is also defined. You also have two positive and negative classes that have some orthogonality condition and some condition on having right fiber sequences. What I defined here is actually the heart of this structure, is actually the intersection of the two classes. But I just thought that it's easier to comprehend.
Okay,
so,
sure. Is this the same amount of data as the weight structure?
Yes. Remark. C can be defined as colimits closure of A in C, and the negative one is limits closure.
I see. Thank you.
And of course, A is recognized as the intersection. This only works for bounded weight structures, but we also only care about those. What you can think of this data is just a choice of something that you think as. So when you talk about connective things, you have some levels, and this is the levels you want to. This is the levels that you have. So these are the cells. These are the cells of your category. For example, if you have an E1 ring, connective E1 ring, you can construct. So perf R is a boundly weighted category. In which sense you just define A to be all direct sums of R. Well, and possibly they're retracts. This is an additive category that certainly generates perf R. Even R generates perf R. It's closed under retract, and this guy is connective just because R was a connective E1 ring. And what weights do mean here? So why do we? If you talk about weight, you probably mean that there is some number, you can measure something, and you indeed can measure if you have M in perf R. You can ask how many cells, how many dimensions of cells you need for M to be constructed. So you have these as 0 cells, and you can, so these are weight 0. And you can define weight N as A N. And you can say that M has weights from A to B, if and only if M belongs to the extension closure of A to AB. So what this is also equivalent to is probably the condition some people are more used to, that M has Tor amplitude of M is AB.
You mean it's contained in AB, right?
This is contained, yeah. You mean this or what? I don't know how you usually write Tor amplitude, but
I don't know either, honestly. There are too many.
Yeah, whatever.
Too many notations.
Yeah. Well, as you might have guessed, this is the kind of structure that we want to add on our AB, A prime, B prime, in order to get the right statement, the right K-theory statement. And indeed, so one point is you can define what it means for a functor of weighted categories. A functor of weighted categories is, of course, just a functor that maps this subcategory to the other subcategory in this category. Functor of weighted category. Is and connected if for all xy in, well, I chose a bad notation. So this A is usually referred as, we usually refer to A as C V equals 0, like weight 0 objects. Since I chose A as a notation for a stable infinity category here, it's a bit annoying, but yeah, in weight 0, maps xy to maps fx fy is unconnected. Right, and this generalizes, so if you think of these weight structures as a generalization of E1 rings, like E1 rings with many objects, and so perf R for an E1 rings is a weighted category, then this notion also generalizes unconnected maps of E1 rings. Indeed, if we have a map of connective E1 rings, map of E1 rings, perf R to perf S is going to be unconnected as well, unconnected.
And sorry, in this definition, you are not asking that F sends the heart to the heart, right?
I do. I'm saying that this is a functor of boundary weighted categories, which is by definition something that sends the heart to the heart.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I see.
I should have written it somewhere, but I don't know where. Sorry. And of course, with this definition, I can also give another one. I can say, I'm not going to write it because it's kind of obvious, but I'm just saying that it's possible. I can say what it means. What it means to be n pullback. And you can also say can also talk about the base change map being unconnected. You just evaluate the base change map on the objects of the heart, and you ask that this map is an unconnected map in the additive sense. Well, maybe let me write down this one. So for all x, y, let me get back the context that we had. So we have A, B, A prime, B prime. How much time do I have left? Not too much. 3 minutes. Okay, I think I'll be on time. And you can talk about the base change map. What was there? Q star, G star. To be unconnected. Okay, so now the statement, the main statement that, the other main statement that we prove is that if you have such a square, square of boundary weighted, for square and connected, and base change ZIF, I don't know, such for is about I'm confused, for square such that it's n pullback. All functors are epic, and the base change map is unconnected. K-theory sends it to a non-pullback square. And pullback square. And now, of course, you have, can you give me like 2 more minutes?
Sure. You
have a corollary that you can talk about pro systems. Well, this is actually not an easy corollary, but anyway, you have it. That if you have a pro square of stable infinity categories with the corresponding conditions being weakly the weak analogs of these conditions, pullback and phase change conditions. K, pro K, maybe I'll just write lim. Weak pullback square of prospectra. And from this, the last one, sorry for going over time. If you have, yeah, basically from this, you just have this theorem. You just have this and the pro version of this theorem. Let me state it anyway. Yeah, maybe it should be somewhere. Yeah, this kind of statement, but for G equivalent version. Because you just apply perf to this perf of the quotient stacks. And then on the quotient stacks for linearly reductive group G, you have a weight structure. And all of the notions of connectivity correspond to the notion of connectivity that you expect. And you have the Proexcision for equivariant K theory.
Can you show the corollaries again, please?
You mean the last ones? Which ones?
Let me see again. So okay, the last one is as you said, Proexcision for equivariant K theory, right?
Yeah, I just didn't write it down because I thought I have already written it down, but apparently not.
Okay, and the previous one is like Proexcision for squares of prospectra. Can I think of it this way?
So this one is a Proexcision for weak squares of pro stable infinity categories. That's what you should think about. But you couldn't define the weak version of pullback and base change for any stable infinity categories. So you just use weight structures to define those. And if you have those, then you're done. Then it kind of works. It's not obviously it's not obvious, but it works.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you have any questions, please ask me. No one asks questions. That's sad.
There is a question in the chat. Wait, don't be desperate.
Ari is asking if this result is also going to be in your paper. This result about
yes. We plan to write down everything, even this CDH. We plan to prove the Weibel conjecture for stacks in the end. It's just not written down because all of us are very lazy, or maybe just me and others have other things to do. I don't know, but in the end, yeah, that's the plan.
So one is lazy and 3 people are busy, right? That's your conclusion.
It's not clear who is lazy and who is busy. It's always a very vague distinction.
Okay. Any other questions?
Shall we thank the speaker first, maybe?
Okay, yeah, let's thank. I mean, yeah. I didn't quite understand if the talk was finished. Sorry. Okay, so there is a question. So Eldon is asking, is the good notion of an nilpotent immersion of weighted categories a functor of weighted categories such that for all weight 0 objects, the induced map on mapping spectra is a pi-0 surjection and has nilpotent kernel?
Right. So I never talk about this kind of nilpotent immersion because I'm, well, it just never happens that I do need the kernel to be nilpotent and not just 0 in this case, but that should be the right analog. And you should be able to deduce things about this because you have good statements about nilpotent functors. Like you know that all idempotents lift and things like that. So it should be the right thing. And I think like things like TC, that you know the statement about the Dundas-McCarthy should be true for this kind of nilpotent immersions, I think. Dictation.
Any other questions?
People need time to overthink your talk, Bob.
Okay, so Harry is asking if we're going to also publish the notes.
Unfortunately, I don't have a website, but I can send the notes to whoever wants, organizers or you personally, sure.
Okay. Yeah, we can try to find some place, some home for them.
Maybe I should make a website in the end.
At some point you probably should. But...
Well, but this wouldn't be like you. So. It's cool to not have a website.
Elder says...
Well, but we appreciate that you're the mathematician who doesn't have a website.
No, he's not the only one.
The only one under 80, maybe?
No, still not the only one, but I want to name names in this context.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
shall we think over again?
Yeah, let's just a second. Okay. Well, okay, let's think over again then. Okay, so comments about websites notwithstanding, we are going to okay, let me stop actually the recording.